Well, Mr. Wood, you have high blood pressure, you're pre-diabetic, you need to lose some weight. Don't you love it when they tell you that and then don't tell you how to do it? Stick around, I'll show you how I've been doing it. Well, welcome back to the channel. Good to see everybody today. Hope you're having a blessed day. As I mentioned to start with, I went to the doctor several years ago, and he said I was pre-diabetic and all this stuff, and of course the great advice is you need to lose weight, and I love it when they tell you that and then don't really give you a plan on how to lose weight. And so I done some research and I started studying, and I come up with a plan that's been working for me for a good while now, and it's the ketogenic diet now. So the other week I posted a video on why I wanted to lose weight, and I covered the why. Today I'm going to cover the what and the how. The what is the ketogenic diet. And what is that? I know you're asking and you're dying to know. Or it's referred to as the keto diet, and sometimes I'll even refer to it as a keto low carb lifestyle or whatever. But basically what it boils down to is this: it's a low carb, high fat diet. And it shares a lot of similarities with the Atkins diet. And as a matter of fact, that's how I was introduced to it, and some other low carb diet. And all it is a reduction in your carb intake, and you're replacing it with fat. And I know back in the 80s, when I was trying to lose weight, I was introduced to a program, and their slogan was "Fat makes you fat." And I bought into that, and I cut all the fat out of my diet, went on a low fat diet, and I lost some weight. But it wasn't sustainable, and so anyway, I know it don't sound like it makes sense, but it does. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to cut the carbs, and when you cut the carbs down to like a significant amount, it puts your body into a metabolic state, and that state's called ketosis. And when it happens, your body becomes really efficient at burning fat. And now, how do we do that? And we're going to get around to it. But anyway, basically, the ketogenic diet is this. Now I'm reading my notes that I've taken, and because I can't remember everything that I want to say whenever I turn the camera on, I kind of go, oh. But anyway, bear with me. Anyway, in summary, keto diet is a low carb, high fat diet. It lowers blood sugar and insulin levels, and shifts the body's metabolism away from carbs toward fat and ketones. All right, so that's the what. Now, moving on. A couple things. If you start in a keto diet or a ketogenic diet or whatever, there's several ways to go about doing it. You can do the organic way, just pure organic foods. You can kind of do the dirty keto, and you can have processed foods and maybe some diet drinks and things. That's kind of what I do. But basically, the best way and the most studied way is just the standard ketogenic diets. And it is pretty simply, it's a low carb, moderate protein, and high fat diet. It contains approximately 70% fat, 20% protein, and 10% carbs. Now there's a high protein ketogenic diet, and it's 60% fat, 35% protein, and 5% carbs. So those are the options there, and there's a couple different things. I just kind of stick with the standard version. I've cut down my carbs to under 20 net carbs. And I use an app that helps me greatly. Is the Carb Manager app. I advise anybody that's going to go on any kind of low carb lifestyle to check that app out, because it'll do the math for you. Because when you start counting net carbs, basically what you're doing is looking at the total amount of carbs minus the fiber. And then if you start looking into like sugar alcohols and things like that, that app will calculate that a whole lot better than I can do it, so I let it do it. But anyway, so there's some different variations of keto. I mean, if you want to get started, one of the easiest ways is just to cut I remember one piece of advice I got was just cut back on your bread and your taters. All right, that sounds simple enough, but there's more to it now. You got to have a significant reduction. So if you cut out the sugar, the grains, the pastas, and things like that, you'll start seeing results just in doing that. A lot of people struggle with soft drinks. I know several people right now that's just trying to get off of soft drinks, and that's an addiction in and of itself. Carbs to me are an addiction, so that's a hard thing. And yes, there's some side effects when you go into the ketogenic. When you start going into ketosis, your body starts, they call it the keto flu, and but there's some steps you can take to curb that. You can have some minerals and supplements and things that help with that. I'll put some of that stuff in the notes. The big question is, what can I eat? Well, luckily and thankfully for me, you can have meat. You can have red meat. You can have steak, ham, sausage, bacon, chicken, turkey, all the good stuff there. You can have fish, tuna, trout, things like that. Eggs. Man, I live off of eggs a lot of times. Butter and cream. You can have that. Heavy cream. Cheese, unprocessed cheese. Now you start getting into like American cheese and sliced cheese. You need to be careful with that. But just like cheddar, mozzarella, and Swiss, those are acceptable. You can have some nuts, like almonds and walnuts, and but you have to be careful with those too, because you get the carbs creeping back up with the almonds if you go crazy. Matter of fact, you know how it is. You eat one almond, you got to eat a bag, or at least I do. So you have healthy oils, extra virgin olive oil, things like that, avocado oil. You have avocados, freshly made guacamole. That's good stuff. And you can eat low carb veggies. And some of this stuff's going to take some research. It's not that hard to find out what you can and can't have, but like green veggies, I like green beans. That's one of the few ones I like. Tomatoes, onions, peppers. Like I said, if you use the carb manager, you can put the ounces in there and it'll tell you exactly how many carbs it has. You can have salt and pepper, man, herbs. Seasoning becomes your friend because you can change the profile of the food just by the seasoning. So then it takes us to what can't you have? What's not allowed on the ketogenic diet? Well, some of the things I've already mentioned. Sugary foods, soda, fruit juice, smoothies, cake, ice cream, candy. Now, there are low carb alternatives to these things, but let me caution you with those. If you're just starting out, just start out by not having any of the alternatives right now. Like if you can make it through the first 2 weeks just doing standard meat and vegetables that are allowed, you're going to be better off. When you get to a point to where you're sustaining your weight and everything's holding steady, you can start trying to incorporate some of those things back in if you really, really miss them. That's just my opinion. Thankfully, I'm not a big sweets guy, but if you are, I mean, there's some alternatives out there. There's recipes out there. I hadn't done any on my channel yet, but there's recipes out there for sweets. But you can check those out, and because you got to make it. I mean, you got to last on this thing more than a week or two. I mean, this is a lifestyle for me. So, some other things, grains and starches and wheat-based products like rice and pasta and cereal, things like that. Fruit, all fruit except portions of berries and strawberries. Some other things to avoid: beans, peas, kidney beans, lentils, chickpeas, things like that. They're not allowed on the keto diet. Root vegetables. Here was the killer for me: potatoes. Oh man, you mean I can't have potatoes? But I promise you, there's alternatives to potatoes, mashed potatoes. There's recipes out there out the wazoo for mashed potato, cauliflower, things like that. So don't give up yet. Sweet potatoes, carrots, things like that. Low fat or diet products like low fat mayonnaise and salad dressings. Be careful, because it's low fat, a lot of times they'll add sugar to make up for that. Condiments like barbecue sauce. Now there's barbecue sauces out there that are good, that are 0 sugar. You have to do your research. Man, reading ingredients is going to become a big thing in your life if you want to go the keto lifestyle. But the good thing about it is if you use the app and you just take time to read things, after about a month or two, you know. I mean, it's harder for me to sit here and explain this to you than it is to live it out, because I've been doing it for a while. I know what I can eat and what I can't eat. So unhealthy fats like processed vegetable oils and even mayonnaise, you got to be careful with mayonnaise, even though it's low carb. I mean, it's still not the best solution for you sometimes. Alcohol, beer, wine, liquor, that stuff will sabotage you more than one ways. One, the sugar that's in it, plus alcohol will give you the munchies. And then next thing you know, you go into Burger King and you're eating a bag of Doritos, and it'll sabotage you quicker than anything else. So I've never heard anybody that gave up alcohol and said, man, I wish I hadn't have ever gave that up, myself included. Sugar-free foods. Watch out for the sugar-free candies and things like that. Even though it's got the sugar or alcohols in it, unless you're just dying, if you're disciplined enough to eat maybe one piece or something, I would just steer clear of that for the first little while anyway, until you figure out how you're going to respond. So basically, you just avoiding that list of foods. But I'll just tell you, like a dear friend of mine told me at church one time. She said, Steve, if you eat it and it tastes good, spit it out because it's bad for you. Yeah, it's not necessarily the case, but I appreciate the wisdom she shared with me on that. But anyway, like I said, once you get into it and you start learning, you'll know what to eat and what not. The ketogenic diet is probably the most researched diet out there, and there's channels out there, there's websites out there devoted just to this, so there's places to do research. My take on it is I'm a blue collar guy and I'm trying to do things quick and easy because I live a busy life, and it's got to work. It's got to work for me, and it can't be too complicated. I'm not going to spend 2 hours in the kitchen concocting something. It's got to be fast. If it means opening a can of Spam and throwing it on the smoker, that's my niche. That's where I'm going. So yeah, you'll learn the do's and the don'ts. Now, like I said, the ketogenic diet is a lifestyle. This is my life from here on out. And at this phase, I've plateaued. I've been at a plateau ever since I started the YouTube channel, which is kind of crazy because I started the channel, if you remember, if you've been with me, to hold myself accountable on what I eat, to have something to do on the weekends, so I'm not thinking about drinking alcohol and things like that. It's just something to occupy my time. But since I started the channel, I've been holding about the same weight. I've kind of went up and down just a little bit. And so this week, or the next couple of weeks, I'm going to try to tighten it up a little bit. I'm going to try to go back to the basics of just meat and vegetables that I know I can eat. I'm going to stay away from the sugar-free stuff and the low-carb stuff for a couple of weeks and just get back on track and reset and see if that'll get me unstuck. So I'm holding myself accountable here. We'll check back together in a couple of weeks to see how that worked out, all right? But anyway, that's my take on the what and the how. I can't recommend the Low Carb Manager app enough. It takes time to start that thing, and you start programming it, and it gets to know what your recipes are. You can save those recipes, and there's a lot of work up front. But after you get it done, man, it is a lifesaver. You can take that app and scan a package of food and know exactly how many net carbs per serving are in that food. That and the little scales to weigh your protein and your meats and your vegetables on. Two valuable tools that I highly recommend. But anyway, that's enough yakking for me today. Until next time, may the Lord bless you and eat well.